Hello, I'm James.
Hi, I'm Jimmy.
Welcome to A Job Done Well.
The podcast about the world of work and how to improve the daily grind.
Good afternoon, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm fabulous, thank you very much. Well, the weather's a bit nasty, to be honest with you. You wouldn't think it was the middle of July, would you?
We're so British. Talking about the weather.
Gives us something to talk about.
In a month's time, we'll be too hot. We'll be complaining about it's being too hot.
What are we going to talk about today then, other than the weather?
Other than the weather, this is the season finale.
Oh, we've got finale, have we?
Finale. It's like, is it French or Italian?
Oh, it's
don't know.
not British.
It's sophisticated. Today, we are going to talk about some of the highlights and lowlights and insights from our virgin foray into podcasting.
How many episodes have we done? 30.
We've done 34, 35, something like that.
And is there anything intelligible in there?
According to our audience, but we'll come back to that shortly. So we are going to give some highlights, a bit of the behind-the-scenes action. So you needn't listen to the other 34 episodes.
We'll save you the effort, yeah.
Anyhow, what have you been up to?
So what have I been up to? Well, this morning I got out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning to take my 21-year-old daughter and her boyfriend to East Midlands Airport so that they could fly to Bucharest. So my daughter is having...
I thought it was Budapest.
Bucharest?
Different places. It's like, are fundamental.
Well, to be honest,
it's like saying Manchester or London.
I had to get to East Midlands Airport. That's all I had to do. She's gone to one or the other.
She's got somewhere in Europe.
Yeah, somewhere in Europe. Oh, yeah, she's out there gallivanting, and I'm talking to you on a podcast.
Remember, as our old boss said to us once, you're one of life's winners, James.
Thank you. Feels that way. How about you?
Well, my week has been overshadowed by the news that my daughter, 21 on Sunday, went into work on Monday and was told that she might be made redundant. As you know, James, she's only been working there for 6 weeks.
What did they recruit her for?
This is an estate agent in West Bridgford, who for now will be nameless.
Oh, we're going to top them in later, are we?
I mean, how Toy Town is that?
Yeah, what a bunch of
take someone on 6 weeks later, making people redundant because the business is performing so badly.
And did they not know?
I don't know. Can they not add up?
Wow.
Sure, you must have seen that one coming. Anyhow, needless to say, she's not very happy. Although I did brighten her day by recommending episode 20, whatever it was, on living through redundancy.
I bet she really wanted to listen to her dad prattle on about it for 30 minutes.
She said to me, why do I want to listen to a podcast when I can listen to you live? I said, it's because you get James as well.
Poor girl. Oh, well, my sympathies to her. So why are we having a finale then? Why aren't we keeping going?
We're going to have a short break for the summer. Apart from the fact that we're on holiday for a number of weeks, we saw at Christmas and at Easter big drops in the audience numbers. So we figured that over the summer...
Bigger drops in the audience numbers.
Hopefully the weather will be nice and people are having great holidays and they're not worrying about developing and improving their performance at work. So we will be back in September.
And where are you going on holiday then?
So I am going on holiday to 2 places.
Yeah, go on.
Ayia Nappa.
Yeah, how old are you?
And Ibiza.
And Ibiza.
So I've got a very lively summer raving my way around Europe.
Whereas I'm driving my Volvo and my elbow patches all the way down to the south of France for a very middle class summer holiday.
It's like we've stereotypical holidays this year. You're going in your Volvo and I'm going raving.
You're going to Ayia Nappa.
There you go. Now, we will no doubt hear more about those holidays when we come back in September.
And what are we going to talk about when we get back then?
Well, we have got loads of subjects. And in fairness, we are going to be recording some over the summer. We've got a great episode with a special guest talking about mood and the impact it has on performance. That's going to be brilliant. We are going to explore the subject of chronic illness and energy limiting conditions and what they are, what it means for work performance, inclusivity and leadership. We've got one on how you get the most out of agile methodology. Lots of nonsense talked about that, but we're going to explore that subject with an expert because we are not. We are neither agile or experts. We are going to talk about why operations and ops is considered a dirty word in many organisations, but it's a capability that's vital for success. And we are going to be talking about managing your career, where we do a special episode with 2 younger members of our audience talking about how you manage your career, us towards the twilight of our careers and theirs at the dawn of theirs.
Very good.
So plenty to look forward to, but we are open to any other suggestions on subjects or guests that our audience want to request.
Yeah, so if there's anything you'd like to hear us opine about, bang on, then please do let us know.
A pine?
A pine, it's a posh word, mate.
Bollock on more like.
Yeah. But before we do that, we'll go into the highlights of the series so far. And just before you hit the pause button, if you have listened to all of this, I have to point out this is the director's cut and there is some new unreleased material towards the end. But cunningly, we've put it at the end, so you have to listen to the grim and bitter end.
Right, James, so highlights. What's the first one we selected?
Well, the first thing is a very recent episode, actually, but all about transformational leadership. So let's have a quick listen to that. I don't wish to decry it, but this is what I would just call good management. What's really tragic is it was built up as this big thing, transformational leadership, because you don't see it that often.
It's rare.
Yeah, I think you're right. You could say it's good management, but it's pretty
rare.
Unique to see all four.
Stephen Covey's the 7 Habits guide expression for this is common sense, but is it common practice?
So what did you think about that, then?
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting episode. I think your point is always, sure, this is obvious stuff, but I thought Amanda's quote was a great one. But everyone is always looking for the flashy new thing, aren't they?
Yeah, the next shining bullet, silver bullet.
That's the one.
Yeah, but it is interesting. I think a lot of what we talk about is an exercise in stating the bleeding obvious, but people don't do a lot of the basic things.
I think where the transformational leadership episode really helps, though, is Amanda does a good job of sharing a model that brings to life the leadership style really well.
So pointing out the obvious is a useful thing to do.
Yeah. We've made a career out of pointing out the obvious, really.
James Lauder points out the bleeding obvious.
So if you want to find out more about transformational leadership, go back and have a listen to Amanda and us on episode 34.
Lovely. Right. In terms of stating the bleeding obvious, I think our conversation with Alex Alexander was priceless. This was the conversation we had about artificial intelligence, which is really the next big thing. But how do you make artificial intelligence work in your business?
Oh, Alex was fantastic, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think spot on, because having the right data and actually asking AI to operate within the context of your organization, what is it that you wanted to do? But I know you summarized it very well, James, in terms of 5 points that I mentioned into 2 points, which are actually correct. But actually, I can narrow it down to 1 point.
Oh, go on. Yeah, even better. I like it.
That'll work for me now.
To really make use of generative AI, you need to have data quality as a priority, because generative AI without high quality data is just fluff.
So what do you think about that then, James?
Oh, well, I thought actually that was a fascinating exercise because it's such a hot topic. But for me, there were 3 points from that. One, I think actually the ability to summarize something down and really get to the heart of the issue is really quite important, because you see lots and lots of management stuff, but really what are they talking about and what they're trying to tell you. So that's the first point. And then the second bit for me, I think, which Alex, given that Alex is a practitioner, but his point is just management fluff if you don't have the data, I think it's really quite powerful. You see so many people running after and grabbing the next big thing when they haven't made anything else that they've got work first. Yeah.
And I wonder how many of the people that are jumping on the AI bandwagon, which is for everyone, how many of them have actually got their data straight?
Yeah, very few, I should think. Yeah. And then, that's interesting actually. So there's one insurance company I happen to know of where they're busy pushing out big data, and it's not the one I work for, I'd hasten to add, but I know for a fact that their data is really appalling. So you've got these very senior people proclaiming how they're going to use it, and they don't know how to use it at all. And then the third thing for me, just the learning really, when you're podcasting, poor Alex, he did sound a little bit like Metal Mickey there. In fairness to him, he was sitting in Italy at the time, he sounded a lot better than us, but just maybe we need to work a little bit on our technology.
Yeah, definitely. Our sound quality on remote recording we need to improve, which we will figure out over the course of the summer. But yeah, I thought it was a fascinating discussion with Alex. I thought he summarised what Gen AI is all about, how it works and how you set yourselves up for success. If you want to hear more from Alex on that, go back and listen to 31 on artificial intelligence. What's next up, James?
The next one was our most downloaded episode ever, and this is the conversation we had with Hugh Alley about continuous improvement. Let's listen to what Hugh had to say.
And part of looking after your people is developing them. Back to that job relations thing about make best use of people's abilities. We want to build those thinking skills.
Okay, so I get that now. So I hadn't quite twigged that. That's really quite powerful. But it is, to your point, it's really about changing the way in which you approach it. It's not about here's the method.
They are helping you think it through. It's asking you what's the next step, thing you need to achieve.
Yeah, but the difference is your boss is your coach to help you figure out what's the next step.
Yeah.
Run a marathon.
Yeah, but there's a lovely Deming quote, which is a goal without method is cruel.
Yes.
But yeah, what you've got is you've got the goal and you've got the methods.
Yes, exactly.
So what did you think about that one then?
Well, I think Hugh from Canada was a great guest, wasn't he? Again, our first step to global domination.
Oh, international, yeah.
But he did a great job of just bringing to life that different leadership role, the leader as coach rather than drop a target, wander off and let people get on with it. It really did change the kind of way you think about that role. I thought it was fascinating.
I really had an aha moment with that because I've been through all that Six Sigma and Lean and all of that stuff, but it just misses the point. You can give somebody all the tools you want, but unless you're supporting them to deliver, then you really are wasting your time. So it just reinforces how much of success in business is about culture, I think.
Well, it really changes. If you think the leader creates or helps create the environment around the individual, well, if you're in there helping the individual, that environment's going to look completely different than if you're there just dropping targets in and beating people with a big stick.
But we did 2 episodes with Hugh, and I've gone back to his first one, which was all about TWI, training with industry.
The war story.
Absolutely, but I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So let's have a very quick listen to that.
TWI started in the US in just before World War II. The Americans were looking around at the world politics and saying, World War II is coming, and while the fight might not be on our soil, our job is going to be to supply the material, planes and tanks and ships and stuff. And the first pressing issue they had was that it takes way too long to train people using the conventional models for training. And so they needed to resolve that. And the second pressing issue they realized was that all the people who were currently leaders in industrial settings were likely to enlist.
So the workforce would shrink quite dramatically.
Right. And so the people that were coming into the workplace to replace them had never been in an industrial setting before.
Yeah.
And so they had no skills. And not only did they have no skills for the technical stuff, they had no leadership skills either.
So it was your classic sort of staff shortages, but on a major scale.
Exactly. And it was a pressing issue to solve because there was a war about to happen.
Well, James, as Hugh's #1 fanboy, what's your thoughts on that?
I just thought it was really interesting. And the thing about that for me was, we think we've got these problems and these problems are unique to us, but somewhere somebody has already had that problem. I mean, you've got staff shortages. Well, look at the Second World War. And I think really it's just a question of who else has had this problem before you and how have they solved them rather than trying to reinvent the wheel all of the time.
I think the trouble is so many organisations suffer from wasn't invented here syndrome. So they all want a new solution, they're unique. Well, these things have been tried, tested and work at scale. So learn, don't try and invent all the time.
And then the other thing for me was, so all Hugh was talking about was just good supervision, how to be a good frontline manager. And the results that people get just by getting their act together were quite phenomenal. So that one is worth a listen to. What episode was that?
That was episode number 29.
Right then, what's our next clip?
So next we are going to hear from Sean Keane, who talked to us about the customer experience and the economics of customer experience, and he talked really interestingly about systems. Let's hear it from Sean.
And then the sort of killer for me is the management system, what they're focused and incentivized on doing. Are they actually given the time and the space to sort out what you as a consumer need to get it done? Or are they under some kind of pressure to get off the call in, within a certain period of time and get on to the next one? And typically, a lot of the improvements can be made without technologies.
So go on then, why did that one appeal to you?
It's great to hear Sean talking about the system as in the wider infrastructure as opposed to just the technology system. And it's something that's been a consistent theme in a number of our podcasts, the importance of thinking about the system you create around your organisation, around your teams, and that system so heavily influences the outcomes and how they behave.
Yeah, and the number of times, also I've said it in this podcast, repeat myself, but the number of times people think the solution is a technology solution, and you can get so much done without the technology.
Well, I reckon, and I know this is only hypothetical,
sample one,
we could challenge anyone if we improve the system in our definition of the system versus the actual technologies, and you could trace the two, I would place my sizable mortgage on the fact that we would outperform by improving the system versus the technology.
Yeah, totally agree. Case in point, very nice. We segued that.
It's almost like we planned it.
Yeah, well, yeah, almost, but we didn't. Yeah. So the next one is the conversation we had about post office. So,
yes.
Quick reminder on that one.
Let's not go through everything, but summarise your thoughts on it, Jamie.
So I think there are three things for me, really. Number one, purpose. Are you really clear what you're trying to do for your customers? Because if you start chasing the money, bad things will happen sooner or later. The second thing that really underpins that is this whole question about culture. Is your organisation open, honest, and willing to learn? And then the third thing, which is interestingly, I think is the minor point, but is the thing that the whole court case hung around, is, processes, systems, all these things, they can be fixed, but they can only be fixed if you're clear about your purpose, what are you fixing them to do, and you have the culture that supports that. So I think that's my take.
Yeah, and I think you're right, James.
I like most of all about that clip.
Go on then.
It's the fact that you say, I think you're right, James, at the end of it.
That would be. That's about typical, isn't it? There's a whole post office scandal, and your big takeaway is, I
was right.
Misspoke.
Yeah, I
and
spoke.
said that you were right.
All right, go on then. So what do you take from that?
No, I think just looking into that whole post office scandal was fascinating. It was quite scary how badly these people have been treated. But there were definitely aspects of that case that I've seen in probably every organisation I've worked. So it's a little bit of, there by the grace of God.
I mean, it was bad, but you can see how bad things happen. It's not unusual.
Yeah. You weren't left thinking that could never happen here. It also does highlight the importance of learning when things go wrong.
Yeah.
In fairness, we had some useful insights on it and how you get compensation paid quicker, which we then shared with the government. So hopefully that's helpful.
Jimmy underplays it. We went and we actually talked to the government about it. But anyway, let's not get into politics. And the next thing, another nice little segue. And so our next snippet is all about governance.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the next snippet is workplace politics.
Episode
6. That would have been the segue.
Yeah,
anyhow,
never mind.
If you want to hear more about the post office and listen to that fascinating story, episode 13, go and have a listen.
Yes, but before you nip off to do that, let's just listen to a little snippet on governance. And this bit, actually, I thought was quite interesting. It comes from the Greek term, hang on, I can't pronounce this, verb, kubenai, which means to steer. But fear not, because I did a secondary bit of research.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody online has, very helpfully on YouTube, you can find out how to pronounce it. So here you go, listen to this.
Kubenai.
We now know how to pronounce governance in Greek, but there's 42 seconds of that. It's thrilling what you can find on YouTube.
How did we live without the content that's on YouTube?
It's beyond me. We learned a lot about the wealth of information that is on YouTube. What can we take from that one?
Well, I think first off, we should thank Cheryl Richards for the suggestion of doing that episode, because that was a request from our audience to cover governance. And actually,
got to give a quick plug there. We are always open to suggestions.
And we can always have either an opinion, do some research, or get a guest to inform you about these subjects.
Yeah, find something on YouTube.
And I think we got a load of feedback about how helpful and pragmatic our advice was on governance and what good governance looks like.
The best bit of feedback we got on that one was from one of my ex-bosses.
Oh yeah, go on.
Yeah, he told me that, what was it? Governance should be fun. No, hang on.
Governance is like sex.
If you're not doing it right. Oh,
if it's not fun, you're not doing it right.
That was it.
Jesus
Christ.
Well,
there you go. That which says a lot about my knowledge of A, governance, and B, sex. Right, now we'll move on to something that I do know a lot about: measures and targets. So
home ground now.
Oh yeah, I had that once. I worked for a guy who was a great combination of bully and idiot all rolled into one. But I remember we were discussing a project, and I said that we'd achieved such and such % of our target. And he said to me, "So James, can you guarantee that you will achieve that in every area that you look at?" And I looked at him and said, "Well, I'm afraid I can't, because every area is different, but we will give it our best shot." And he said, "No, James, you don't understand. Can you achieve that? Yes or yes?" And then he started banging the table. And after I walked out of that, you can imagine I was a bit dazed, but I made sure that I told him we'd hit the target. Whether we had or not is a different matter altogether.
That is a great example of lazy management. Set a target and then just shout a lot until you get that target delivered. Whereas actually, real skilled leaders have a set of measures that they know are linked into their purpose, and they will help and coach their teams to improve.
Absolutely. That's that great phrase, isn't it? Deming quote: "A target without method is cruel."
So in summary, link the measures to a purpose. Understand the drivers. Is it the system? Is it the people?
It's always the system, Jimmy.
Of course. Don't jump to conclusions, James.
Now that clip highlights one of my hot buttons, which is if you give somebody a target, they will hit it from whatever way they can, and you just end up cheating. So if anybody's jumping up and down on people's heads, don't be surprised if they tell you the answer is yes.
God, you do love a Deming quote. It also highlights consistently through our podcasts, we have talked about some of the best and worst people that we've worked with and for.
We have, yeah.
And that will no doubt continue as we go through the future episodes. But the importance of learning. And actually, in your example, that was a boss that was definitely well worth learning how not to do things.
Absolutely. I do wonder whether he's listened to this. Anyway, the other thing that I think that just drags out is the whole conversation. We got to go around it, but the whole thing about systems versus people. And I know we have different views on it, but actually the two I think are inextricably linked. You have to look at both of them.
They are, but I prefer to have that debate when Amanda's with us.
You've got your mates ganging up on me.
Yeah, it's 2 against 1 when we have
you're
that.
More likely to win. Right, now then, we'll come on to our final clip of the episode. So I promised you this was the director's cut. Which episode did we talk about making people redundant?
We talked about it in episode 27.
All right, well, here is the director's cut of making people redundant.
Otherwise known as one of our best outtakes, and it absolutely shows the power of editing.
Yeah, okay. I hope you enjoy it.
Yes, she always experienced you as being very posh, she said.
Yeah, I am very posh. Posh James. Common Jimmy. Good afternoon. What are we talking about today then? Will you shut up your sniggering? God's sake, that wasn't even funny.
She started singing. I shouldn't have told her that, because now it's like, it would probably be all right.
I just
now
launched into it. I'm away. I'm a professional. Right.
He's the Northallerton Peter Kay. What have you been up to, James?
What have I been up to? I've lost my train of thought altogether now.
See, focus.
What else I was going to?
And from a leadership development perspective, so leaders who are very often leading these programs or smaller conversations, it's often not something that leaders are taught. So there's a big variation in the experience of how this happens.
We could send everybody on a course. This is 1S, one sacking. Yeah. Is there a super sacking course?
Sacking for dummies.
There's got to be a business opportunity in that. We've got it. Your sources, your future.
Sacking for dummies.
Advanced sacking.
The S factor.
Right, there you have it. Lauder in full flow. I should be on the stage, mate. I've often fancied, a Northern Working Club. I could have beer thrown at me with the best of them. I could.
And I think they probably would, James, unfortunately.
So, there you go. That brings us towards the end of this episode. Here's my question then. What have you learned overall then from everything that we've done over the past 30 episodes or so?
We shared today some of the clips and highlights, and I think as we've delved into subjects new and old, there have been little bits and pieces that we've learned. But one overriding thing I think kept on coming out in many episodes was just often the way of unlocking performance and improvement was down to being really clear on your purpose or the problem that you're solving, and then making sure that your system and your ways of working were all consistently lined up with that purpose.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter whether we were talking about the post office, governance, politics, whatever it was, that rung true.
Yeah, we ought to change the name of the podcast. We ought to call it the Get Your Shits Together podcast rather than Job Done Well. But I do think you make a very, very valid point, right? There's nothing new under the sun here, right? It's about being clear about your purpose and understanding what your customers want.
And although we are new to podcasting, so we've been learning furiously about stuff like promoting and editing podcasts. So please remember that. It's just me and James here. There's no flashy studio, no professional editors. So we're just doing our best when you compare us to some of the other podcasts you listen to. But we were also trying to be really clear about our purpose as well and what we were doing. The aim of the podcast was to improve performance and enjoyment of work.
Yeah. So in the interest of eating our own dog food, what do our customers think then?
Well, I think there's two ways we had defined that would show us what our customers, the audience, thought of it. One was downloads, so the number of downloads we have, and the second one was feedback that we got from people.
And how are we doing on them?
Well, on downloads, to be honest, we started off, I think we said early doors, we were in the top 25% of podcasts globally. Worldwide, which sounds fantastic, but it is a very, very low bar to limbo underneath.
But have we maintained that?
There's been some nice growth on some episodes, but as an example, the lowest download episode compared to the highest be 4 times.
Yeah.
So,
so
the highest one is 4 times
bigger than the lowest.
So there is quite variation, which would indicate some subjects are working better than others with the audience.
So I suppose there's a question, and if you've managed to make it to the end of this, then as a customer, we'd really welcome it if you gave us some feedback, told us what you like, what you'd like to hear about, and what works, what doesn't.
And in fairness, a lot of people have been stepping forward on that front. We have had emails, texts, people that we bumped into.
Advice about sex
even.
Yeah.
But there has been a lot of feedback. So, we'd absolutely welcome your help on both those points. One is, if you like the episodes, share them. And the second one is, get in touch, give us some feedback.
Super. Right then, I think that's us done then over the summer. Enjoy your holiday. Ayia Nappa, here we come.
And south of France, let's poodle on down. And
we will poodle down in the Volvo.
And I hope everyone has a fantastic summer, whatever you're doing. And watch this space and rejoin us in September for some fantastic news episodes.
Cheers now.
Thanks, everyone.
We cover a whole host of topics on this podcast,
from purpose to corporate jargon,
but always focused on one thing: getting the job done well.
Easier said than done. So, if you've got unhappy customers or employees, bosses or regulators breathing down your neck,
if your backlogs are out of control and your costs are spiralling, and that big IT transformation project that you've been promised just keeps failing to deliver,
we can help. If you need to improve your performance, your team's performance, or your organisation's, get in touch at jimmy@ajobdonewell.com
or james@ajobdonewell.com.
On.